Okay, I think we should start. Otherwise,
Yes. So please go ahead, Rupak.
yeah. So as per the schedule, the next talk is about advanced XCOS, right? So I will be taking this session, and I will talk about some topics of XCOS which you may not find in the spoken tutorials. So these are some advanced in the sense these are more than what we have taught in the spoken tutorials. Okay, so let us begin. So what I will do is I will share my desktop. Yeah, for this session, I don't have any presentation as such. I will directly jump into start building some XCOS diagrams. And so as the talk proceeds, I will keep on switching to the next topic. So let us begin. First, let me first fire up XCOS. And again, this is a live session, and you have the files, but then it is not required that you run the code along with me. Let me not wait for you to finish the simulation. XCOS is relatively a little bit difficult, so it will not be possible for all of us to sync and wait for each other to finish creating the diagram, because some XCOS building XCOS diagrams requires some little experience, to quickly go around and connect, and you should know exactly where to find that block and how to go about it. So at an initial stage, it will be very difficult for us to sync to each other. So again, I will request you to watch this live session and learn from whatever I could teach. And anyways, the final output code is given to you. You can always go and execute that code. But more importantly, you should know how did I come up with that diagram, right? The process is more important than the product.
Video at least.
Sorry?
Could you please share the recorded video? You said there's no tutorial available about this one.
Yeah, we'll make it in the future. Tutorials will be available in the future. Recording, I'm not sure whether we can do it. I'm not sure about that, because this is a
recordings. Actually, we have not decided whether we'll share or not,
At
because
least,
we want everyone to come here and learn.
Yeah.
So we have not. In case we decide or host it somewhere, we'll definitely share.
At least some important, for example, GUI along with this one, which are not available in the spoken tutorial. Maybe that's better.
So we need to talk to our seniors, and we have not decided. The decision has not been taken. So once we decide, we'll definitely share.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
I have the same here, if I can interrupt. Since about 63% have joined this session, so it may be difficult for you people to segregate. But if that is possible, only those who have attended that important sessions, there will be a condition. That's selectiveness.
So sharing a recording session is a problem because it will be a huge file. For us to upload somewhere, for us to send it to you. So that's why we have no, as I told you, discussions are going on. We have, because there was a series of workshop, and Scilab is the last one. So if we the discussion is going on this topic. So because it is a huge file, because if one of you have attended more than one workshop, then we will get larger files to dump and download. So I don't know how easy will it be from the participants' end to receive all this. So we are having discussions. In case we decide, we'll definitely share it with everyone.
See, I think probably everybody is asking for this recording. Those who have attended, at least they may be serious in that.
Yeah, definitely. So
unless
the feedback is
unless we will be doing it repeatedly, it may not be comfortable. Now we are some of us may be in that area, not so frequent user, so we can refer that.
No, definitely we'll share, sir, if we get a go ahead. And as I told you, we are a group of people. We are already talking to each other on what to do, because the receiving end people will have a larger files. So that's the only problem. So, and all these recordings need to be edited. to be fine tuned properly and then host. So even if we share, it will take some time. But as I told you, we have not committed anything as of now of sharing. But definitely, I'll put a word again that even Scilab people wants the recording. So yeah, and I'm so glad that you people are so interested in learning and taking revising it again and again. So yeah, it's very nice. So right now, let's just stick to this live session and let's get started. In case we decide to share, we'll definitely share edited videos with you all. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Vinita.
Yeah, Rupak.
Yep. So let us first start with a basic example. Now, you all of you would have watched the spoken tutorials on XCOS, right? So you would have been familiarized by now with what does XCOS look like, right? And what are the various windows. But still, I will just spare a few seconds to talk about it. XCOS is it's kind of an interface in Scilab available that using which you can build intuitive diagrams, right? And you can actually conduct model-based simulations in Scilab using XCOS. It is similar to Simulink if you have used MATLAB before. It is similar to Simulink. And XCOS, first of all, doesn't come separate. It comes along with Scilab. You can't install XCOS separately. You have to install Scilab in order to use XCOS. Okay, and next is XCOS can be invoked by simply typing XCOS here, or there is an icon over here to launch XCOS. When you launch XCOS, you will see two windows, untitled window and a palette browser. We call this as a palette browser, this one. The palette browser will contain various blocks, and these blocks are all categorized nicely to make it easier to find blocks. Okay, so for example, these names are all they tell a lot about what kind of blocks you will find inside, right? So they are well categorized so that you don't end up searching for the blocks. You can easily find it. So, and until now you would have seen that in XCOS, whatever simulation you have done until now on the beginner level or at the basic level, you would have seen that most of the XCOS simulations you would have configured the simulation and then the simulation executed for whatever amount of time you wanted it to run, right? But then during the simulation, all that you could do was to watch what is happening, watch the plots evolving, or as the plotting happens, or as the numbers change, whatever. So until now, you would be familiar only with read-only kind of a situation with XCOS simulation. Now let us take an example of how can you make an XCOS simulation interactive. Okay, so I will choose a very basic, simple thing. One important block in XCOS that you can use to make your simulations a little bit more interactive is sliders. Okay, because buttons and sliders, you saw the GUI session, right, where she was talking mostly about sliders and text inputs and buttons and so on and so forth. So as an interface, XCOS provides a slider facility, and I will make use of that right now. So a slider can be found inside the sources block. Now again, sources, why? Because you see the category source. What does the name source tells you? It means that you will find blocks that generate something, right? So if you've seen a block carefully, there is an input port and an output port. So all the blocks possibly inside the sources category, they all have output ports, means they generate something. Okay, hence the category of sources. And I want to generate something, in the form of a slider. So I'll find it inside the source section. So here is that block, TK scale. Don't worry about the name. The Scilab community decided to name it as TK scale. They could have very well named it as slider, but they chose to name it as TK scale. So we'll call it as TK scale. So I dragged and dropped this block here. Next, what I will do is so it's a slider, it's going to generate some numbers, and what I'm going to do next is I'm going to plot it. So for plotting, so now plotting is basically generating an output, right? This is generating an input. There is some system in between, and there is going to be some output, right? So output means what? You will find output blocks inside sinks category. So inside sinks, I will choose a plot a block to plot something, and the simplest block to plot something is the C-scope block. I will drag and drop it here. I can use my keyboard arrow keys to adjust, to relocate the blocks wherever I want. Now you can see that both these blocks have a red input. See, there is a port here, red port. Now in XCOS, you might have already known this, but in XCOS there are two types of, actually three, but here I'll tell you two types of ports. One is a data port, which is black in color, and the other is the red color port, which is essentially the event generator. Yes, so there are two types of ports. Black port denotes the data port, and red port denotes the event port. Event as in essentially you can think of it as a time scale. Okay, not literally, but just to get yourself familiarized with the behavior. So these two black ports can connect to each other, but red and black cannot connect to each other. You should never connect a red and a black port. It will not even allow you to connect. So only black ports, a black port can connect to only another black port, and a red port can connect to only another red port. Okay, but two output ports cannot be connected together, and two input ports cannot be connected together. Okay, so you see this. The output of TK-scale is going to go in as an input to the C-scope block, right? So I will connect it. So this red input, so I need an event generator. I told you that these are event port. It is not a data port. So where will I find inside sources, right? Because I need something that generates input. So in sources, I have this clock underscore C block. It will generate events for me, and I will connect it. Now, if you want to connect this port to this C-scope block, because the C-scope is already connected to this block, no, you cannot connect this port to this port because the connection is already there. So where you can connect is, what you can do is you have to connect this port inside, on the line, not on the port. Okay, so I'll do this. Okay, this is how I connect it. Fine. Now what I will do is I will run this code. That's it. I will. So for executing the XCOS, you know that you have to click on the start button. So I'll click on the start button, and the simulation will run. And I don't know if you noticed, but the slider came here, but then it immediately disappeared, and the plot is also 0. So what happened is basically the simulation is running too fast, or rather not in real time. Okay. So what we have to do is we have to tell XCOS that please run this simulation in real time for me. Okay. So to do that, you go to simulation, you click on setup, and you see this menu. Now this setup menu is is where you set up your simulation, entire simulation. Okay. So I will not go around telling you details about every of these all of these parameters, but rather only the first two. The first is final integration time, which tells for how many seconds you want the XCOS simulation to run. Whereas the second parameter, that is real-time scaling, it tells XCOS whether you want to run the simulation in real time or not. Okay, 0 means not, as you have seen, and if I change it to 1, it will run in real time. Real time is not literally it's a soft real time. It is not really in real time. Okay, and then I will run the simulation again. Now you see the slider is still here. You can see, right? And now if I move, now the slider, I can capture the movement or the changes that I'm generating with the help of the slider. It is getting injected inside the simulation, right? The simulation is still running, and I'm still having a good hold on the simulation. So imagine this slider, and as soon as the simulation ends, the TK-scale block will disappear. Okay. So imagine, this was a very simple example. Imagine you have a big plant, big 50 block simulation, and you want to alter some parameters while the simulation is running. So for example, if you are looking at the output and you notice that some parameters are going beyond some values, and then at that point you want to make some changes and see what happens now. So for that, if you don't use TK-scale, you will either have to code that part beforehand, or you will have to stop the simulation and start again, which is not a good idea. Okay. So this is about TK-scale as sliders. Now what I'll do is I'll first close this plot window. I'll replace this TK-scale. No, first of all, I'll like to tell you what is this TK-scale has. This TK-scale will have this minimum value, maximum value, normalization. You can read about the help of TK-scale later on. The names are very obvious. Minimum is the minimum value to which the TK-scale can take. Max is the maximum value. Normalization is essentially scaling. So it will scale the output accordingly. 1 means there is no scaling. It is proportional. If I make it 2 or 0.5 or something, these values will change. These will be scaled accordingly. You can explore that later on. That is not the topic of discussion right now. So what I'll do, I'll replace this TK-scale with a ramp. I will delete this TK-scale block. I will move it up and I will connect. Now this ramp doesn't require any event input, right? That's it. Now what I want to do is I want to run this simulation not in real time, because it is going to take a lot of time to generate a ramp. If I give a very small slope, it will take a lot of time. So I'll switch the simulation to not real time, it is 0. And I will choose the value of slope to be. Right now, the initial values, the default values for ramp are all 0. Slope is 0, start time is 0, initial value is 0. So start time and initial value are 0, that is okay, but slope is 0 is not okay. So what I will do, I will change the slope to 1. And I will run the code. So for ramp input, you get some threshold related warnings. These don't matter in this type of simulation, the one that I'm showing you right now. Maybe some other simulation it will matter, and we'll have to take care of this. But right now it's just a warning, and I'll just ignore it. I'll just click on OK. And you can see that the ramp is plotted, right? Very quickly, because I was not running it in real time. This is the ramp signal. Now you saw I defined slope here, right? I wrote 1 here directly. But what if I don't want to write the 1 here? What if the simulation has 10 such blocks, and I don't want to define these blocks every time. I want some code, I want some external script, or I want to define the value of this slope somewhere else, not here. How do I do this, right? So there are 2 ways in which you can do this. One is that this ramp block in this example imports the value of slope from the workspace, which is the Scala workspace. That is one way. And another way is the context menu. Okay, so let's see both these ways. So first of all, I want to represent the slope as S, okay, and not 1. But when I click on OK, it will say that undefined variable S. Scilab doesn't know what is X, or rather Xcos doesn't know what is S. Why? Because I never defined S, right? I cannot simply write alphabets in place where numbers are expected. I cannot write alphabets without defining them. So what I will do, I'll define S here. So I'll say S is equal to 1. I'll go back to my Xcos window. I'll choose the slope. Now if I make 1 as S, it should accept. Okay, it accepts, because now it knows what is this, right? Now I'll run the code. Again, the warning will come, I'll ignore it. And the slope is generated, right? So this is one way in which you can pass a variable from Xcos to variable from Scilab workspace to Xcos. Okay, now, right now you will not be able to appreciate it because the example is very simple. But imagine that these are some initial conditions that you want to pass to your simulation before the simulation is executed. And those initial conditions are generated by some programs, right? Some Scilab programs. And those change with every time you run the simulation because you change some parameters. So every time you can't sit and copy paste those variables here. So rather than doing that, you simply declare the variable names and use them. So this is one way. Another way is context menu. So inside the simulation menu, there is a set context button, or rather option. So you click on it, now it will give you a small window where you can type something. Now this is similar to the Scilab workspace, not workspace, but a place where you can write some Scilab code and Scilab will execute it before it runs the XCOS simulation. Before, okay. It is giving you some basic information here on the top. You can read it later on. So what we can do, we can declare our S here, but now I'll not declare it as S. I'll declare it as A. Okay, just to make a difference. A is equal to 1, I will say. Okay, and I will use this value of A here. Okay, I'll run the simulation. I'll get a warning, but I'll also get the output. Right, so it understands that A was defined in the context menu, and from there the A was fetched before the XCOS simulation executed. Right, I did not declare A here. You see, undefined variable A. A is not declared here. A is declared in the context menu. Okay, so context will also help you to bifurcate your variables. Right, you can reuse the variable A here without affecting the declaration in the context menu. Right, some advantages I'm just telling you as it comes to my mind. Then what I will do. Now let's see how do I dump the values of the generated value, these values, this ramp image. How do I save these values into a file? Or before going to the file, how do I pass this value to the workspace? Now workspace has no information about what is happening inside the XCOS, right? I don't know anything about what output was generated. There are no variables that hold the output value, and there is a way that you can convey the variable back to the workspace. Just like S was converted from the workspace, there is something towards the workspace from XCOS. So I'll close this plot window. I'll come back to the pilot browser, and I want to carry some data out, right? So I will go inside the sync section, and I will use the to workspace block. There is a block called as to workspace. Okay, I'll connect this. I want this RAM data to be made available in the workspace. I'm clicking wherever I want to use line bends. Okay. Every time I want to bend, I use the left click button to make a bend. So that's it. So now if I execute, let's see what happens. I execute it. It complains. Okay, what does it complain? Protected variable name. Yeah. So now A was used there earlier. So what I have to do is maybe this I will remove, and I will use S. Okay. So now I'll start and I'll generate the data. And now workspace block did not complete. So apparently workspace block reserved the variable A by default. Okay. Either I could have changed here or I could have changed there. But because the workspace variable names by default to workspace block by default uses A, I will not change that. So now A variable has been declared by the workspace block, and A contains whatever data was generated by the ramp segment. Let us see if A exists in the workspace. If I say A, yeah. So now A, it says that A is not a normal variable. You see, it didn't say, I did not get the values directly when I executed A. Rather, it showed me there are two, there are two things that you can do with A. Either you can extract its values or the time. So let us see A dot values. You can see there are so many values depending on for how long the simulation executed and how many data points were generated, I got the value. Okay. Now you may wonder why this A value is not starting from 0. The slope, the output always started from 0, right? I don't know if you remember. I'll execute it once again. Of course, all simulations starts from 0, right? From 0 time scale, and the initial value was 0. Because you see this, initial value was 0. So why is A not starting from 0? So that is because of the property of the 2 workspace block, which is this size of buffer. So size of buffer means that how many points you can say, maximum, how many points that the workspace variable can export. And this buffer is basically a circulate buffer. Okay, what happens in a circulate buffer is that as soon as this limit is crossed, the next data point is going to be overwritten to the first data point. Okay, that is the reason why it ended up overwriting the first value, because the number of variables, number of data points exceed this buffer size. So you can play around and explore it later on. So now let's see how do I write this to a file. Okay, I was writing to a workspace, right? Now you can always use the Scilab commands. You studied write to a file. Which tutorial did you study? File handling. In file handling, you would have seen writing to a file, right? So you can always use those commands to write to the file, but you can also do it from Xcos without writing any Scilab code. So to do that, let me create some space first. So in the sync section again, I will use something called as write to C binary file. Okay, write to C binary file. So I will connect this. I will connect the input. I will go a little bit faster, otherwise we'll overshoot the time. Professor Kannan's talk is there next. So file name is foo, output format is C. Now C here stands for character. I don't want to write characters, I want to write decimal values. So I'll just put D here. Click on OK. So rather than foo, I will say data. And before I run this code now, I have to make sure I know in what directory I am. So right now, I am inside this my FOT presentation directory inside the FOT files. So I'll keep it as it is, but I should know where I am. Why? Because the moment I execute this now, it's going to create a file and it's going to save it there. So I should know where it is saving the file. Simulation is executed. Now let us see. Yeah, you see this data file? We just now generated this data from Xcos. Okay. Yeah, probably you can also see it here. See in this directory file browser section, data file is here. Initially there was no data file. Now I have a data file. But now you see this this data file that you are seeing is not a regular data file. It is not a TXT file. You cannot open this in an editor and look inside. So it has saved it in a format in a way that only Xcos will read. It is an Xcos. It is a data file generated by Xcos for Xcos. So how do we read from here? Essentially, we have to use the read from binary block. Sources, and what I will do is I will delete this block. I will delete this block, and I will use this read from C binary file. Sorry. By the way, if you have such not so good looking connections now, you can always click on it and then right click on it, and there is a link style option, and there you can choose what kind of connection you want, horizontal, straight vertical. I choose optimal, and it will fix it. This I will connect. So make sure when you run any XCOS diagram, it is not all the ports are connected. There is no dangling. There is nothing dangling. There are no dangling connections. There are no ports that are not connected, unless those blocks allow you to not connect the port somewhere. Now in the read from C binary file, I will write the file name. I will write data. Now when I write data, it assumes that the data file is existing inside the current workspace directory. Okay, it is not going to search data file throughout your computer. It is going to look only at your current working directory. If you want it to find the data file from somewhere else, you better write the path here. So C:, whatever the directory path here, you write it there. But right now I want it to find only inside the current working directory. So I'll write data, and that's it. So now hopefully if I run this code, it should work. You see ramp is generated, but there is no ramp block here, right? Do you see any ramp block? There's no ramp block. How did this ramp generated? Because we saved this data inside that data file, and from this block we read that data. Okay, this is how you read and write two files from XCOS. Now let us do some conditional operations. Now I want to show you how can we do some if-else operations in XCOS, right? How do we generate some conditions, and how do we act on some conditions? So what I will do is quickly I will add. First of all, I'll make some space here. I'll move the block a little bit away. Delete it and I'll connect it once again. I'll not worry about the connections how they look right now because I'm running out of time. And so what I'm going to do first is I want to apply some conditions, right? So I want to express some conditions, like for example, if input goes below this or above this, whatever. So to express something, now there is something called as in mathematical operations. I don't know where do I find. There is an expression block. The expression block can be found inside the user-defined functions. Why? Because it is a user-defined expression. You see, these names are so intuitive, right? Expression is not something that is fixed. It is something that you write. You can write anything you want here. So I'll open the expression block. Right now it has number of inputs 2. By default, I'll change it to 1. I don't want 2 inputs. Then I want to say that when the input and output in XCOS are represented always in XCOS, the inputs are represented as U, that is U1, U2, U3 if there are 3 inputs, and Y1, Y2, Y3 if there are 3 outputs. Okay, U and Y. XCOS talks about input and output only with these 2 names, U and Y. Okay. So when U1 is greater than 0, so this is the condition default. I want to change it to when U1 is greater than 5. What should happen? I want this expression to return me 1. This is the condition. And until this condition is not satisfied, the output is 0. And as soon as the condition is satisfied, the output becomes 1. Okay, 1 into 0. Imagine this is 0. Okay. Initially, this is 0. And then as soon as it becomes 1, 1 into 1. Okay, essentially that. I can even choose not to write that, but then I'm just writing it for simplicity. U1 greater than 5 into 1 is my condition. So I'm basically watching the input to cross 5, the value 5. What I will do is I will stick this expression block. No, I'll sense the output of the binary file directly to the expression input of the expression block. And then what I will do, first of all, I want to see what is the output here. Now you have seen plots, right, to see the output, but you can also display numbers. You can also have a numeric display, not just plots. So to do that, in sync section, there is a block called as AFFICH. There is no right way of pronouncing this block. We pronounce it as affich block. I have no idea whether that is the correct pronunciation. But this is that block that will help you. I'm sorry for the noise. This is the block that will help you display the numeric value. Okay, let us connect it. You have to satisfy all the connections that the block is requiring. If it requires an event port, you have to connect an event line there. Now let us see what happens. I will, before I do that, now I want the simulation to run in real time. Why? Because I want to capture this situation happening, right? This condition happening. I should be able to get enough time to watch this happen. So I'll change it to real time. I will execute this code. You see this ramp is generating and this is 0. As soon as the ramp crosses 5, it becomes 1. Okay, so I have successfully captured something happening. I've sensed something, right? You could do something else very well, but I want this condition to be captured. So I have successfully captured this condition. Now, what I want to do is, as soon as this condition is reached, I want some action to take place. Okay, so the one action that comes to my mind is I want to abort the simulation. As soon as this value exceeds 5, I want to abort the simulation. Right? I'm assuming that something bad is going to happen, and I'm going to just stop the simulation. And it could very well be a bad situation, right? For example, you can always connect Scilab to a real hardware and connect to a real plant. I have done that myself. I have successfully accessed a real plant process with Scilab, and all those data values were very real, and whatever inputs and outputs I was giving, it was taking effect, in the real world. So suppose you're doing something like that, and you don't want some situations to be entertained for too long during the simulation. So what you can do is you can abort the simulation, or go switch to a safe mode, and then abort it safely. So we'll assume something similar is happening, and what we will do is we will put an if condition, right? So conditions are available inside the event handling, right? Because you see this if then else block. So if something happens, do this. If it doesn't happen, do that, right? That is something the if else condition typically means. So I'll connect this block. Links are not proper. I can use a shortcut key O to fix it. We will finish the connections. Now I'm forgetting what am I supposed to do? Yeah, I have to connect I have to kill the simulation, right? I have to abort it. So in the sync section, because see, something is going to be fed to something, right? So in that sync section, I will find something called as halt block. I want to halt the simulation. Okay, I cannot go any further down. I'll keep it here, or I'll keep it here. So I will connect it to the first output. That's it. So I've commanded the simulation. I've sensed some condition, and based on that condition, I'm trying to halt the simulation. Let us try running this. The ramp is generating, and as soon as it reaches 5, you see the simulation has been aborted. How do I know simulation has been aborted? The stop button has got disabled. The graph is no longer plotting, so the simulation is stopped. Next, I want to show some very important feature of XCOS, which is super blocks. Okay, super blocks allows you to do or create XCOS diagram inside an XCOS diagram. Okay, ideally there is no nothing stops you from doing this with something called as super blocks. And because these are user defined blocks, you will find it inside the user defined functions category. This is a super block. So now what I'm going to do, super block is essentially, you imagine you have a big simulation and there are so many blocks, there are so many things happening at the same time, and then you don't want people to be confused when they look at your diagram, and you want to declutter your simulation, but at the same time you want to make it accessible also, right? So to do that, what you can do is you can use superblocks to represent some sections, right? You can represent, say, the filter section by one superblock, then some processing happens, you define, you declare it as another superblock. So here I will assume this expression right now, it is a very simple expression, but we imagine this expression is some complicated mathematical calculation happening on the input. So what I will do is I will put this expression block inside the superblock. How will I do that? I'll double click on the superblock. It will open a window. It will not open a parameter. Okay. When for example, if I open this, double click on this expression, it opens a multiple value request window, right? Which I can put the values. But when you double click on a superblock, it opens another canvas, on which you can make an XCOS. So here, what I will do, I'll copy, I'll just and paste, Control C and Control V here. That's it, and then I'll connect. So you saw that these two ports were already there, right? Because superblock by default has one input and one output, and that is the reason why I had that. And I will delete this expression block. Oops, everything got deleted. Okay. So, and then I'll connect it here. I'll connect it here. Fine. Let us see if it works. The expression is still the same thing, hasn't changed. Okay, and superblocks, I mean, it is possible for you to simply, you don't have to save this file separately. It is an XCOS code only, but you don't have to save it separately. It is a part of the main XCOS file. Okay. Once you save this entire code, you will have only one single XCOS file. You will not have two XCOS files. And no matter how many times you try to save this will still remain untitled. I'm not going to save it now. So what I will do is I'll close this and I will run this code. You see it is working, right? The same operation. The only difference is that now my superblock has that hidden information, right? Now, unless and until you open this, nobody will come to know what is happening on this input. Why is this simulation getting killed? What is the condition? All those things, if you want to know, you have to go inside and see the expression block, right? Imagine this expression block is replaced by some 100 blocks of simulation. Okay, so I think I'm done with this part of XCOS. The second part is about we want to also show some cloud facility in XCOS. Okay, so this all this I was doing on my desktop computer, right? Now we also have tried our best to port some functionalities on the cloud. So now let us see that. xcos.fossee.in is the site name. So once you open this, so this is a web facility made available to you by Fossee, and what we have attempted to do here is to port the XCOS functionality over the web. So what is the what are the advantages? It is you don't really need Scilab or XCOS, in your computer running. You can do some XCOS simulations on the fly because this is happening over the web. You can even use your mobile phone, tablets, other devices to run the code. So it doesn't even matter whether you are using a Linux system, Windows system, Mac system, ARM architecture, whatever, any breed of computer, as long as it runs a browser and is connected to an internet, you can run the XCOS file. So I will create some simple. So now you can see that it is a little different, looks a little different from what XCOS looks like on a desktop. But once you start using it, you will get quite familiar with. You can easily familiarize yourself with this. We have tried to keep the look as close to the desktop as possible. For example, the palette browser is is on the left-hand side, and the categorization is same as what you see inside the palette window. Okay, so what I will do So what I will do is I will generate the same. I'll do that same code. I'll have a ramp input block, and I will plot it. Now this facility is, it doesn't have everything what XCOS does, but we have tried our best to capture most useful features of XCOS. I will connect. Again, this slope is 0. I will put it as 1. I'll submit. And in setup, I will have to setup menu is here. I will change the final integration time to 30 because I don't want to run it forever. And I will simulate. Let's see if it works. It works. Okay, so we have XCOS facility over the web. You can always go ahead and explore it. xcos.fossee.in. Okay, now you would have seen TBC, right? XCOS Scilab TBC. Similar to Scilab TBC, we also have something for XCOS. I'll open that now. It is xcos.fossee.in/example. Okay. Now, not all examples are there here, but we have some. I can show you some good example to show you the power of this. So what I will do, I will go to now. This category is like same. What engineering domain you're trying to look for the book about, and I will choose the control theory category. I will choose the book Feedback Control by Franklin Powell. Then I will choose the chapter on frequency response, and I will choose the example. There is only one example, 6.14. And you can see that this model is there, XCOS model. It also has an SC file. Let us see. So you see there is an option here. There's an action column. What you can do with this is you can either download these files and run it on the desktop. They will run it as same as any other XCOS file, or you can open this on the cloud. I'll click on open on cloud. So you saw there was an SC file also associated. Right? So that SC was generating some inputs for the simulation, and it is basically declaring a variable SW, and it is putting it as 2. So I don't know why it is 2. It is, you have to see the book. So this is the XCOS diagram for that example. Let me simulate. So if everything goes well, yeah, I have the simulation. Now don't ask me whether this answer is right or wrong or what is happening, because this is just an example I'm taking from a textbook to show the demonstration of XCOS on cloud facility. Now there is also one thing I want to mention. Also from the Scilab on cloud interface, you can jump to XCOS on cloud. But I think I'll skip that. Sunil sir, are you there?
Yes, I'm there.
Yeah. So Sunil sir is a senior manager in Fossee, and he is essentially driving all this project on putting things on cloud. So you saw this XCOS on cloud. This is all sir's effort and his mentorship. Under his mentorship and under his guidance, we could make this XCOS on cloud possible. It is a long effort. I mean, there are so many people involved. Sunil sir is heading this effort, and so now what we realize is that XCOS is so powerful, but XCOS right now is limited to only Scilab. Remember yesterday we talked about the philosophy of open source software not competing with each other, but rather helping out each other, right? So if some software is giving me some power to do something and the another software is not capable of doing that, what I will do is I will import the capability of that powerful software, open source software, right? And we work together. So in that line, in that direction, in that same thought process, what we thought that because Scilab has such a powerful model simulation environment, XCOS, why can't we extend this facility to other FOSS tools? For example, Python. Python doesn't have any XCOS-like environment, right? Julia or any other tool that you can think of. That suppose that tool has XCOS-like environment, it will be so helpful, right? You can write your code and also make use of XCOS-like environment. So in that direction, we also have started a common interface project, where we are trying to develop a common XCOS-like interface which will work across FOSS. So I would like Sunil sir to show it to you. It will be a very quick demo, maybe a couple of minutes. Sunil sir, over to you. I will stop sharing my screen, but I'll continue to speak. So this is this interface that Sunil sir is working on, and this is a work in progress, and not everything has been ported right now, but we are in the process of completing the loop, as in figuring out the nuts and bolts and making sure that things work. So what Sunil sir is doing right now is he's trying to represent that same example that I showed earlier, probably. And so right now he will use Scilab only. He will not use any other software, any other FOSS. But then the backend part, the software interface, the architecture is such a way that given that one understands the API, the software interface behind, anybody can write an extension to any other FOSS tool, and it's the same XCOS environment will work for that particular FOSS. It could be R, it could be Python, it could be Java, it could be any other FOSS language. So sir has made this diagram. Sunil sir has made this diagram, and he is now checking the transit analysis parameters. Yeah. So I think that's all for this common interface. It is at a very initial stage. We are yet to figure out so many unknowns here. We are yet to tackle so many problems here. But slowly and steadily we are moving forward, and hopefully, in the near future we will finish this work. And we are also taking some intern this time to help us do this. We have had interns earlier also who have made all this possible. Sunil sir, if you're done, can you turn off your screen so that I know that you're done? Yeah. So I have overshooted my time. Vinita, are you there?
Yes. So it was nice demonstration and also the session by you, Rupak. And
Thank you.
Thank you, Sunil sir, for coming and demonstrating the common interface. So it was really a nice interactive session to see the plots and graphs coming up. You do drag drop. So that's we have for XCOS.